10:30, heading route to 9 North Road for a female party.
She was on her back, blood on the right and left side of her face and in her hair.
I just saw the gun in her hand going up, and I lunged to try to get to her.
We had looked into who Amy Fanyon was and investigated whether or not she had any suicidality, if she had any issues with her mental health.
Did your mother have a temper?
Yes.
Did she have a short fuse?
Yes.
Brian was a fine, upstanding member of the Westfield community and was a God-fearing man and a good family man.
The morning after she died, I had taken Brian's cell phone.
It doesn't look good that I have a relationship with another woman, but that doesn't mean...
Your wife is in a bar. You said she's unresponsive.
This is what he's going to tell you. How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything?
We, the jury, and to find the defendant.
The sign is recorded. What's the address of your emergency?
Hi, this is Brian Fanyon. I'm at 9 North Road. My wife just shot herself. Can you send me some help?
All right, Brian, we'll get him right out there, okay?
The Westfield police dispatcher knew the caller well. He was Detective Brian Fanyon, a 30-year veteran of the Westfield Police Department, and he was calling about his wife, Amy.
Is she?
She's gone. God.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yes.
All right, we'll get him right out there, Brian, okay? Yes. Bye.
Engine 3, Med 30, heading route to 9 North Road for a female party who possibly intentionally shot herself. Police en route. Again, that's 9 North Road.
30's on scene.
Engine 3's on scene.
Received 3 on scene.
This came in, frankly, like any other unattended death or suicide as it was initially reported. So members of my state police detective unit responded to Westfield.
There was a walk-through kitchen that led into a dining room with a dining room table. She was on the floor. The table had been moved so she could get medical aid. She was on her back, blood on the right and left side of her face and in her hair. I didn't know Brian very well. I knew who he was. He was quiet. He was tired. He looked like he had been crying.
He had stayed by Amy, holding and rubbing her hands. The Westfield Police Department did arrive, shocked to find their colleague of many, many years in this position. Brian had asked to wash his hands, so they let him, and the investigation continued to take place. By all respects, Brian and Amy appeared as a loving couple. Their 2 children are adults now, Victoria Fanyon and Travis Fanyon.
The more I got to know them and know about them, I was impressed with how close they are as a family. Didn't seem to be much turmoil in it.
The family was active in their local church.
He had volunteered where teenagers could come and get meals and talk to other members of the law enforcement community.
And Brian had just recently returned from a mission to Mexico with other church members from the area.
Amy did everything for others. She was volunteering at the Cancer House of Hope.
She was truly like a beautiful, kind soul.
So the question became, what would lead Amy to take her life?
It's Thursday, May 17th, 2018. It's 3:42 p.m. And Brian, do you understand we're audio-visually recording this room right now? And you're obviously here on you came down to speak with us today about the incident that occurred at your house last week.
She voluntarily told the state police that Amy and Brian had been fighting for the past few days.
What was the argument over?
It was about my upcoming retirement and our different views on what that would be. Well,
yeah.
We've been arguing about it for several days, so.
Yeah.
want details about it.
As much details as you can provide to me is helpful, you know.
I want to travel more than she does. We have a dog that's rather old. I don't want to get another dog after that. She really wants a dog. Like she said, a house without pets is dead to her. Our house is really old. There's a lot of maintenance involved with it. And I told her I don't want to be a slave to this house. I want to enjoy my retirement. And then there was a current, there's a play coming up that she committed us both to attend. Didn't ask me before. I didn't want to go because I had something else I wanted to do. She said, it's obvious I didn't want to be with her. I didn't want her around, I think is what she said.
That day, Amy was working on polyurethaning a child's step stool with different animal characters on it as a gift. Her brother, Eric Hansen, had actually come to the home. She talked about the good weather that they were going to have later that week. And by his account on May 8th, she was happy and normal, not distraught in any way.
Detective Thania was on duty at the Westfield Police Department that day, but left around noon to go home for lunch, as he said he often does.
So just walk us through. So you said you took your firearm off and you put it on the hutch?
I went in and used the bathroom.
Where was your wife when you did this? She was
either in the kitchen or at the table or transitioning from one to the other.
What was she making?
Peanut butter toast.
Peanut butter toast, okay.
I went in and used the bathroom.
Okay.
I came out and she was at the table. Just kept talking. She had the gun in her hand and just, it's obviously, you don't want me around.
Mm-hmm.
She, shot herself and I tried to get to her, but couldn't get to her.
If you could pretend with your fingers, like, you know, what you saw, you know.
I don't understand.
And I was, you look up and what do you see? I wasn't there, so.
I just saw the gun in her hand going up, and I lunged to try to get to her.
And she's talking to you when she's doing this?
That's all she said, but that's the last thing I heard her say is, you obviously don't want me.
Okay.
And you see raised arm, the gun, puts it towards her head, somewhere's around here. Okay. And then how long of a period of time is it?
Very quick, because I was here, and by the time I got over to here, just quick.
So how close did you get, Brian?
Less than a foot. I was right here, and it went up.
So she was in the chair when this happened, and then?
Yeah, she went over to the side, and down to the floor. And I crouched over her and rolled her to the side. The gun was beside her. I think I may have even moved it a little bit, but just because I pulled her to me.
So what happened? What did you see?
Blood just started to spread from her head. She had breathing, I guess they call it. I went and got a phone to call 911. And then I went back to her, just held her hands. Until she died. So I had blood all over my hands. I washed my hands and I shouldn't have.
Watching his interviews with police, his emotions were not extraordinary. He wasn't overly, weepy or sad. There seemed to be some thoughtfulness or purposefulness around what he was saying.
So she got that mad that quick?
Just spiked.
And it's just over that, what you said? I mean,
it was from the night before still. She was still mad, but
It was always Amy was rageful. Amy did this out of rage. He said that she was just so angry, and she only gets so angry around me.
I mean, were you unhappy in your marriage?
I wouldn't say I was unhappy. It just I don't know.
It's just us here talking. I'm just trying to understand, how something could get that so fast. You know what I'm saying? Get that heated that fast. And I just want to understand the dynamic of the relationship.
We were happily married.
It's the city of Westfield, Massachusetts. It's a close-knit community. They had to have known as time went on, and it wasn't officially ruled a suicide. It was pretty evident the direction this case was kind of going.
A note or letter was sent to my office early on, signed by purportedly a number of family members, urging me and the district attorney's office and the state police to sort of cease and desist in the investigation. Given that Brian was a fine, upstanding member of the Westfield community and was a God-fearing man and a good family man.
The morning after she died, I had taken Brian's cell phone to perform a cellular extraction or a data extraction on the phone.
And they discovered a series of provocative texts between Brian Fenton and a woman by the name of Corinne, who he had met on the church mission to Mexico the previous November.
That friendship continued when they returned. It was in March where the relationship seemed to rapidly progress into something more. Clearly a romantic affair that increased in intensity.
In his first interview with detectives on the day Amy died, Brian had downplayed the relationship with Corinne.
So we talked about, you spoke of, having a friendship with another female besides your wife. And obviously, we took your phone, we went through it, like, you knew we were doing that. And so we seen the text messages. So, in all honesty, Brian, it looks like it's a lot more than a friendship, to be honest with you.
It is more than friendship, but the time has not gone. We've not had sex. We've not had sex or regular sex. We've met. Amy knows about it actually every time we met, but she doesn't know that we had kissed. But I do love the woman, but we have an agreement that we did from the beginning that that's just friendship. I mean, not that it's just friendship. Well, it was from the beginning was that it was friendship, but that I wouldn't be thinking of.
Yeah. I mean, did you understand from where I'm sitting though that just doesn't,
That's why I told you it's going to look like more than it is. And I know it escalated, and it was almost like a game where we're pulling up each other. But I'm completely embarrassed by it, ashamed of it. It shouldn't have happened.
We found out later, essentially while his wife is on the floor of their dining room, and he is texting his girlfriend, don't call or text for a while. Please pray very bad for family, before he called his son.
When was the last time she was in the area here?
She was here for the wake.
There's a family gathering in his father's home to mourn Amy's death, and downstairs in the basement he's tear-free and kissing Corinne passionately.
Detectives also discovered a series of internet searches on Fenton's police computer around the time the affair was heating up.
Started to search for divorce, pension rights, and how divorce affects pension rights.
But if you try and remove yourself and become an outsider like us, and how it looks, it
doesn't look good. Okay.
It doesn't look good that I have a relationship with another woman, but that doesn't mean that I took that to.
No, I'm not
taking my wife's life. I mean, lots of people have had appropriate relationships, but how do you jump to that?
I think as a police officer, and especially a homicide investigator, you know, you're driving alone in the car and you're thinking, I can't believe that I'm investigating another officer for killing his wife.
We had looked into who Amy Fanyon was and investigated whether or not she had any suicidality, if she had any issues with her mental health.
In Amy's phone, everything was positive, everything was supportive. She was so excited for spring. She was so excited to have a grandchild. She had plans. This was not a woman who was in any way suicidal or preparing to kill herself.
But the medical examiner began to receive calls from Brian Fanyon about his wife's health.
He's probably keenly aware of what we're investigating and how we're going about it because he knows what we do. He sent a list of medications that Amy had taken. Most of them were old, I think for irritable bowel syndrome.
He had stated that Amy's IBS was triggered by her anxiety and depression. After that, he had found a journal of Amy's. He decided to highlight particular passages and stated to the medical examiner that he wanted them to have the highlighted version
as potential signs of her being sad or depressed or in some type of crisis, as supporting evidence of the fact that she had killed herself.
The final ruling on suicide or homicide would in fact come from the medical examiner's office, which relied heavily on the forensics.
Trajectory of the wound would have come from slightly behind and at a downward angle, with an entrance here and an exit out here. I had never seen a head wound like that in a suicide in the years that I've been doing it.
All right, so what hand did she have the gun in? Her right hand, okay. So can you just show me what you see though? Can you demonstrate what you see her do?
I just saw the gun.
Does she have it held like by the handle? I mean, how's she holding the gun?
She doesn't. She's not a gun person. So it looked like she was holding it awkwardly. She may have. I don't know. She may have even had it with her thumb in it. I don't remember. It was really awkward the way she was holding it. Because she's not a gun person.
I know this is someone you love, but you know, I just need you to walk me through, you know, what you've seen her do, because this is important. You know, but it's, you know, with me, it's important. You know, we need to get through this.
I just know it was awkward the way she was holding it. That's all.
So she puts it to the side of her head?
Yes.
Okay.
I knew that. And she saw the gun up there.
It was, where was it, like just like touching her, you know?
Very close if it wasn't touching.
And then those tests showed that, you know, that gun was further away from Amy's head when the trigger was pulled than he initially told us.
There's a problem. I'll be straight up and honest with you, okay? There's no indication whatsoever so far that she had a gun close to the side of her head.
You're wrong, because she did. Because I saw it. It didn't happen.
You know,
how do you say there's no indication?
I'm just telling you right now, there's no indication right now. So, I mean, you gotta help me understand this, Brian. I'm confused by it.
I'm telling you what I saw. She pulled the gun to her head.
I mean, there's no doubt she was shot. But the question is, from what distance?
It was right freaking there, I'm telling you.
Yeah. I mean, I have to make sure of this here, Brian.
Well, do what you need to, but I'm telling you, it was right there. How can that not leave the evidence?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
All I can tell you is what I saw, and the gun was right there.
Like right pressed up against her head?
I don't know if it was contact, but it was right there.
And because Brian Fanyon had washed his hands right after the shooting, there would be no gunpowder residue on him.
you fired a firearm and have powder on your hands, Brian, and she needs it on her hands. If she didn't do it, you would also do that. Isn't that fair to say?
I wouldn't do that.
I know, but is that fair to say?
I don't know if that's fair to say. I wouldn't think of doing that. I suppose I can see what you're creating.
I'm not creating anything.
I'm telling you what happened.
Right. I'm telling you, you held her hands. You washed her hands.
God, she was my wife. She's dying.
Right. I understand.
She's dead.
So the other option is you got pissed and you're a few feet away and you shot her in the head. She's sitting eating her sandwich.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen?
Did not happen. She picked up the gun and she shot herself, and I tried to stop her and I couldn't.
Okay. Anything else? Obviously, we're got concerns, you know, as it's evident, right? I just want you to help us through all that stuff.
I'm telling you the truth. I'm giving you a lot.
So you didn't shoot your wife?
I did not shoot my wife.
His statements, as he made more of them, became inconsistent in some critical areas for us. And, you know, we started putting that puzzle together that led to a picture that this was not a suicide.
He was quiet when we went into the house. I think he knew as soon as he saw us why we were there. And the only thing he said it to all of us in the room is this really necessary?
When all the facts were accumulated, it was fairly clear to me that Mr. Fannion killed his wife in cold blood in a calculated manner, and it was a first-degree murder charge.
Brian Fannion's children and other family members were in the courtroom almost every day to support him.
They've already been through their mother dying. She died violently. They thought at her own hands. So they've processed that. They've gone through the grieving process for that. And now it's starting all over again.
On May 8th, 2018, that defendant, Brian Fannion, shot and killed his wife, Amy Fannion. He shot her in the head because Amy Fannion was the only thing standing between that defendant and the rest of his life. He was perceived as clean-cut, straight-laced, and played by all the rules. But the evidence will show that the defendant's outward appearance was deceiving. Most of us like to believe that police are the people that you can trust, and they are the individuals who will make things right when everything else is going wrong. Certainly that was a tremendous hurdle in this case. Beneath the surface, the defendant was in love with another woman, Corinne Hasty, then Corinne Knowles. The defendant told Corinne that if he divorced Amy, Amy would end up taking him for everything that she could, and he would have to sell the house and split the money and half of his pension. Ladies and gentlemen, Amy Fannion did not shoot herself. During this trial, you'll hear how Amy Fannion used to be the only thing standing between this defendant and his plans. Now it's the evidence in this case. The evidence that will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant murdered Amy Fannion with deliberate premeditation. And once that evidence is before you, I will ask you to find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. Thank you.
Great, Attorney Brown, are you prepared to make an opening at this time?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. The prosecutor was not present on May 8th, 2018, when Amy Fannion was shot. You learn that those theories are half-baked and incomplete. Brian Fannion may not be perfect, but he did not shoot his wife Amy. He didn't shoot her, and it's inconceivable to even suggest that he did. Amy suffered from severe anxiety. She received treatment from her anxiety at various points in time and took prescribed medications for her anxiety at various points in time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not some crime drama TV show that you may have watched in the past. This is going to be painstakingly detailed, the evidence in this case. Brian Fanning is innocent. The evidence will show that. Brian Fanning did not harm Amy Fanning. And at the conclusion of the evidence in this case, I'll ask that you find Brian Fanning not guilty. Thank you.
The prosecution's first order of business was to show that Amy was not suicidal.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
I'm Anna Hansen, Amy Fannion's sister.
Anna and another of Amy's sisters were among the few family members willing to work with prosecutors.
Can you tell us, what was your personal relationship with Amy?
Amy and I were very close. She was just an incredibly supportive, loving source for me, always, like unwavering love and support no matter what.
Can you tell us about any health conditions that you know Amy suffered from?
Digestive issues.
During the time that she struggled with her digestive issues, did she ever express to you that she was feeling suicidal?
No.
How would you describe Amy's mental state over the years?
She was pretty solid, even keel. She didn't waver too much from just being her usual self.
Before May 8th, what was your take on the relationship between your sister Amy and this defendant?
As far as my perception, I thought they had the dream marriage.
How did you view this defendant before May 8th?
I adored him.
All right. Tell us about May 8th. When do you find out about Amy's death?
Sorry.
It's okay.
I received a message from my sister Mary, and she just seemed very upset. So I called Amy's house, and Brian answered.
And what did the defendant say?
When he answered, I said, "Brian, what's going on?" And he said, "Amy's gone."
Was there a time where you had a further conversation with the defendant about that event?
Yes. It was about 2 weeks after. He said, "So I have this friend." And he proceeded to tell me that he was in love with this person. He was in love with her more than anybody he'd ever been in love with in his life. How happy and wanted he felt by her.
What did you say to him?
Well, I was still in shock from losing Amy, and now I'm in shock that Brian isn't who I thought Brian was. And I just thought, I was like, well, think back to when you first met Amy. I said, surely you loved Amy, at some point in the beginning even. And he said no.
So you have this conversation with the defendant. What's the next thing that happens?
We just kind of sat there for a long time. He was holding my hands, and it was just quiet for a long time. He said he was going to go lay down on the couch, so we went into the living room. He laid down, and I put a blanket over him.
What was the next thing that happened?
He grabbed me and kissed me really hard. On the lips.
Was it closed or open mouth?
It was closed.
How did you feel about that?
It was very uncomfortable.
Was that something that he normally did with you?
No.
On cross-examination, defense lawyer Jeffrey Brown produced the letter the family had sent to the district attorney that Anna had also signed.
And you do agree that that statement states unequivocally, we are certain that Amy took her own life on May 8th, 2018. Did I read that correctly?
Correct.
And it's your testimony that you were told or ordered to sign that letter. Isn't that correct?
Yes, we were told to go sign the letter, yes.
Knowing what was contained in the letter, why did you sign it, Anna?
It was very awkward. We were all still in shock from losing Amy. And Brian was sitting right there when they told us to go sign it. And I just kind of went along to just try and keep the peace.
What happened to the family dynamic once Amy died after May 8th?
I lost all my best friends.
Who are you referencing as your best friends, Anna?
My family.
Why did you lose them? Or why do you feel that you lost them?
They don't talk to me anymore because I agreed to testify to who Amy was.
My name is Corinne Hasty.
The prosecution's second witness was the woman Brian Fanyon had fallen in love with.
And what was the conversation that you had with this defendant about him saying that he loved you?
Told him that I loved him back.
Did the defendant ever talk about what could happen to him if you were to divorce Amy?
The conversation was that if he was ever to divorce Amy, there was a concern about the money in regards to pension and other benefits.
She described the last time she saw Brian before Amy's death in a deserted parking lot near his home.
Well, we were talking, per usual. Then we ended up in the back seat. I took my top off and my bra.
Okay.
He had his shirt off. There was kissing, there was hugging, there was French kissing, there was digital penetration from him to me.
Did he express any concerns at that time about going further or having difficulty going further with sexual intimacy?
Yes, he just said that he couldn't get it up because he was thinking about Amy.
On cross-examination, Corinne said she ended the relationship a month after Amy's death when detectives began to contact her.
And even when ultimately you ended it with Brian, his response was okay. Isn't that right?
To my recollection.
In other words, he didn't beg you to change your mind. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
He didn't say to you, oh my God, I killed Amy for you and you're leaving me? He never said that, right?
Correct.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is John S. Shrine.
There was extensive testimony at trial as to what is seen in a self-inflicted gunshot wound and the evidence that a firearm explosion produced from a .45 caliber firearm leaves behind. And none of that was present on Amy Fanyon's head.
So, could you demonstrate on me, in front of the jury, what you were doing with these females during this blue gun testing?
Your Honor? So essentially, the women were asked to initially hold the weapon, given the information relative to entrance and exit. They were asked to attempt to provide that angle. Again, they were incapable of doing so without my intervention.
Am I producing the trajectory of Amy Fanyon right now?
No, you were not.
Where am I shooting?
Forward.
So you're trying to see how it's possible for this firearm to be manipulated, or this dummy dump to be manipulated, to how far out it could be that a person could manipulate it to produce any soot whatsoever, correct?
Yes.
Did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of ballistic certainty as to whether Amy Fanion's wound was consistent with close-range fire?
It was not.
And did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of ballistic certainty as to whether Amy Fanion's gunshot wound was a contact wound?
It was not.
But the defense was ready with its own powerhouse witnesses.
Hi, I'm Victoria Fanion. I'm the daughter of Brian and Amy Fanion.
The defense was largely that Amy was short-tempered. She was angry and quiet.
Did your mother have a temper?
Yes.
Did she have a short fuse?
Yes.
Did your father ever yell at you once in your life?
No.
Amy and Brian's son, Travis.
Was it incomprehensible that your mother did something impulsive on May 8th, 2018?
No. I could easily picture or envision her grabbing the gun impulsively or with dramatic effect, but not knowing well enough how a gun worked that she picked it up intending to complete a trigger pull and shoot herself.
Brian Fanion decided not to testify, so the final witness for the defense was Amy's own mother, Patricia Tarrant.
Did your daughter Amy have a temper?
Yes.
Did you ever observe Amy to be snippy with Brian?
Yes.
How often?
Often. Yeah.
Brian couldn't do anything right in Amy's eyes, isn't that right?
Yes.
And would you say anything to Amy when you would see this?
Yes, actually, because it would be at the supper table very often, and I would be embarrassed.
And is it fair to say that amongst the community of your family, that Brian has a reputation for being peaceful, gentle, and nonviolent?
Correct.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Good afternoon, Ms. Tarrant. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
During those times when you saw Amy snipping at Brian, did she ever threaten to hurt herself?
Amy wouldn't have said something like that. She would never, say what she was going to do to. I mean, that's just not. She wouldn't talk that way.
Is this defendant very dear to you, Ms. Tarrant?
I beg your pardon?
Does this defendant mean a lot to you? Do you love this defendant?
Yes.
With that, we will now have the closing arguments of counsel. Attorney General.
I'd suggest to you that the reasonable conclusion that you should reach is that Amy Fanion snapped, raised the gun to her head, and as Brian Fanion lunged towards her to get the gun away from her, the gun fired, killing her. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not suggesting that Amy Fanion intended to kill herself. I'm suggesting that Amy Fanion was a volatile person at times, a wonderful person, but nevertheless volatile, and had some rage issues. And when things didn't go her way or as she planned, it caused her severe anxiety to the point where she lashed out. I'm suggesting to you that this was one of those instances. And ladies and gentlemen, after you consider all of the evidence in this case, I'd suggest to you to find Brian Fanion not guilty of this charge. Thank you.
The credible evidence in this case proves that the defendant had every motive to murder Amy Fanion. The evidence shows the defendant's thought process. He loved someone else and he couldn't stay with Amy, but he can't divorce her. In his mind, the defendant was left with one option. All of the defendant's excuses have failed. Only the evidence remains. And that evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant murdered Amy Fanion with deliberate premeditation. And now that that evidence is before you, I ask that you find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree.
Mr. Foreperson, has the jury agreed upon its verdict?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Foreperson, what say you? Is the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Guilty of what degree of murder?
First degree.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. Commonwealth, move for sentencing.
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth moves for sentencing at this time.
It was rather fast. No family members from either side chose to speak.
Your Honor, I will be speaking today alone. Amy was simply irreplaceable. Kind-hearted, selfless, and devoted to her family. She demonstrated a compassion for others that is so rarely seen in our everyday lives. Her truth, who Amy was, and who she will remain to be to those who truly knew her, and those who truly loved her, was this: she was a gift.
All right, Mr. Clerk, you may impose sentence.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Faneuil, would you stand, please, sir? Hearken to the sentence which the court has awarded against you. The court sentences you to life imprisonment.
It's life in prison without the possibility of parole. This was a man who murdered his wife in cold blood as she was eating a sandwich. And the only thing this woman did was serve her family, look out for them, and love them.
Justice was served. Mr. Faneuil is being held to account for what he did that was so heinous and so callous and so sociopathic.
And I hope she didn't see it coming. I hope she didn't realize what was going on, and I hope she didn't suffer.